I'll be honest, I don't know a whole lot about Aquaman other than he can enforce his will onto aquatic life. He's the king of Atlantis, he used to have a sick harpoon hand, and is really, really dense. Interpret that however you like. Released in 2016, written by Dan Abnett, with art by Brad Walker, Philippe Briones, and Scott Eaton, this is Aquaman the Drowning.
Aquaman, king of the seven seas.
The book begins in the middle of the ocean. A narrator tells us how massive the ocean is and how insignificant man is compared to it. Then Aquaman swims by at high speeds. At the Atlantean dryland embassy, the Spindrift, Mera, once and future queen of Atlantis and wife of Arthur Curry, informs him that an Atlantean terrorist group, the Deluge, is heading towards the east coast to blow up cities or something. Also, they ride enslaved prehistoric plesiosaurs and mosasaurs, which is pretty fucking cool. Aquaman finally catches up to the Deluge and fights them. And then the leader of the Deluge, Coram Wrath, tells Aquaman that he is too fond of the surface to be king of Atlantis. And the narrator goes on to tell us how the people of the surface view Aquaman as a superhero, but that they are obsessed with the idea that he talks to fish. And then the narrator lets us know that that is not how it works, and that myth has made him a running joke in pop culture. All while Aquaman is fighting a giant fucking dinosaur. Cut to Arthur Curry's lighthouse in Amnesty Bay. Aquaman defeats the sea beast and sends Coram Wrath onto the nearby beach. Wrath threatens to set off the fusion bombs he has anyways, but then he and Aquaman get into a tussle, and Aquaman beats his ass. Then Aquaman orders the Drift, a special ops team of Atlanteans, to come and secure the prisoners and beasts. Then Arthur heads over to Sam's Seafood, his favorite seafood diner. The narrator lets us know that they almost pity Aquaman because he's a man who wants to make the world better and safer, but at the same time he is seen as a punchline or a menace. Anyway, Mera shows up and sits with them, and they're talking while a waitress brings over some chowder. The two talk about the Deluge. Arthur's trying to figure out why, after being quiet for so many years, that they would attack, while Mera tries to eat some chowder. Then they have a nice chat about how Mera tolerates so much of the surface world for Arthur, and Mera tells him that if it's important to him, then it's important to her. The narrator tells us that Mera is the light of Arthur's life, and possibly without her, the burden of being Aquaman would be just too much, and he would collapse. And that's why this mysterious narrator will kill Mera and destroy the Spindrift. Then they'll finish Aquaman. The narrator then reveals himself to be none other than Black Manta. I mean, who do you think it's gonna be? It's an Aquaman book. You think it's gonna be the awesome threesome? Black Manta then vows to get vengeance for the death of his father. At the Curry Lighthouse, Arthur and Mera are drinking some coffee and talking about the opening of the Spindrift later that day. Mera tells him that a peace between the surface and Atlantis probably won't happen in their lifetime, but Arthur tells her that it's time for the fears everyone has to change. At the Spindrift Embassy, Lieutenant Joanna Stubbs of the British Royal Navy and Ray Delane of the Daily Planet walk inside. Joanna meets Captain Sark, the head of the King's Guard, and he leads her to the main room. Then Aquaman and Mera appear and begin a tour of the Spindrift. A little later, there's like buffet tables, and Joanna and Delane are checking it out. Delane eats like some weird green and pink thing, and then Sark comes over and tells him that it's a sea slug. Then Delane gets sick and races to the bathroom. Mera comes over and orders Sark to go check on Delane so that they don't get a bad review on TripAdvisor. So Sark goes to find Delane, and when he does, he finds him like crouched over in the hallway, and then Sark looks over to the wall and he sees something on the wall that's metal, and he's like, "Mr. Delane, what are these? I'm pretty sure these weren't here before." "Hey, wait a minute. These look an awful lot like explosive charge. Delane slams Sark's head into the wall and fucking stabs him, revealing that Ray Delane is actually Black Manta. Manta sets off the charges and then Spindrift explodes into a giant ball of fire. Mera orders the guards to get the guests to safety as she holds back the now flooding waves of water. And from the waves, Black Manta appears. And he walks towards Mera and Joanna and he shoots Mera with like an electric cable thing, and it makes her go unconscious, releasing the water. Then Aquaman and Black Manta get into a fight. Manta tells Aquaman that his idea of bringing two worlds together is just delusions of grandeur, and that people should be scared of him. Then he stabs Arthur in the chest. And now, we get a flashback of a ship in a storm. Arthur is on it, looking for the Black Manta, but suddenly, he is shot in the back with a harpoon by a shadowy figure. Arthur turns around and kills the man, but it turns out the man was Black Manta's father, Mr. Manta. And that's it. That's why Black Manta is so obsessed with killing Arthur. Back in the present, Manta fights Aquaman and sets off even more bombs that engulf the entire Spindrift. Aquaman tells Manta that their fighting is just an endless cycle of blind hate for the sake of it, and it won't end till one of them is dead. Manta's like, yeah, no shit. Aquaman turns and tells Joanna to get Mera to safety, and then he slams the harpoon that is in his chest into the wall behind him so he can pull himself out of it, which is pretty badass. Aquaman tells Manta that killing his father was the worst mistake he ever made, and he wasn't Aquaman then. They fight some more. Arthur tries to get Manta to back down, but guess what? He doesn't. So Aquaman starts beating him with his trident. Black Manta is cornered against the wall with Aquaman holding a trident to his neck. Aquaman tells Manta that he can kill him. It'll save lives, and that he'll still be Aquaman. Manta refutes and tells him that if he does kill him, Aquaman will be tarnished and he won't really be Aquaman anymore. But if Manta kills Aquaman, he'll be just fine because his father will be avenged. Aquaman pulls down his trident and hands it to Black Manta. Aquaman tells Manta that if he's killed, then Manta has no meaning in his life anymore, and that no death will ever be able to satisfy Manta. Then Manta gets upset and throws the trident away and falls to the floor. Manta is then arrested, and Mera's like, I would have killed him. Then, while Manta is being taken away, the convoy that he is in is attacked, and Manta is broken out by a dominatrix lady Deadshot at two fans of the wrestler Goldust. Cut to some abandoned airfield. Black Manta is being interrogated by Blackjack. Yep, that's her name. And her gold-faced goons. She tells Manta that they are Nemo, and that the reason Manta was freed is because Nemo wants him to join. So Manta is freed from his cuffs and starts beating the shit out of the guards. Then Blackjack tells him that Nemo doesn't like Aquaman either and takes him to their leader. In Washington, D.C., Aquaman and Mera go to meet the president, but are only allowed to see Chief of Staff Gantry. Aquaman asks for a reinstatement of the diplomatic status of the embassy, but Gantry tells him that the U.S. lost a lot of lives, a lot of civilian lives, and that their government doesn't know a whole lot about Atlantis and sees it as a threat to national security. Aquaman tells Gantry that it was Black Manta who attacked, and the attack was personal. Gantry gets upset and is like, see, you're admitting you bring trouble with you, even though that's literally what happens to every other superhero. And since Gantry fucking doesn't like Aquaman like everybody else, Arthur tells him to ask Superman and the Justice League to vouch for him. Cut to the South Atlantic. The USS Pontchartrain is attacked by the Deluge. The Deluge. Deluge? How the fuck did I say it before? Back at the White House, Arthur is arrested for an attack that has apparently been claimed by Atlantis. Gantry starts shouting that this whole meeting was a distraction for a counterattack on the U.S., closing the embassy, blah, blah, blah. And Arthur's like, no, shut the fuck up. Arthur is placed in a cell, and one of the Secret Service agents asks him for any special requirements. And Arthur tells him that he needs a fish to talk to, and that if he is deprived of a whale song for over 4 hours, he'll go berserk. So Arthur is sitting, looking at his cuffs, as the agent tells him that if Atlantis did attack, then it's an act of war, and the U.S. has every right to hold Arthur as prisoner. Arthur tells him that Atlantis did not sink the ship. Then the agent offers to remove the cuffs, And Arthur's like, yeah, I can do that too. If I barely flex my wrists, they'll break, and I can easily walk out of here. But I'm not gonna do that, because I have done nothing wrong, and neither has Atlantis. At the White House, Mera is talking to the regent of Atlantis, Tola, about what's going on. Tola tells her that the Atlanteans are angry about their king being held prisoner, when she is informed that the drift is approaching the wrecked ship. Commander Merc and the drift find hundreds of dead US Navy members floating around the crash. They inspect the wreckage and find something. A 5th Dynasty Atlantean war sword. And since Commander Merc watches Atlantean Antiques Roadshow, he knows it's a priceless heirloom, and no Atlantean will leave it stuck in some ship. It was left there deliberately by someone looking to tarnish the all-right name of Atlantis. The US Navy shows up and then it tries to attack the drift, and Tola orders them to withdraw before communications are cut. On a plane flying in, you guessed it, the sky, Black Manta and Blackjack are talking, and Manta demands to know about Nemo. Blackjack tells him what it stands for: Nautical Enforcement of Macrocosmic Order. It's a fucking whole New World Order thing. Then Blackjack tells Manta about Nemo and how they want to go public, and the only problem is Aquaman and Atlantis. In DC, Gantry and Mera argue, and Gantry starts yelling at Mera about the attack on the ship. Mera tells him that it was not Atlantis, but he doesn't fucking believe her, and threatens to have her detained as well. And then Mera asks where they are holding Arthur. Guess what happens next? At the place where Arthur is being held, Mera breaks in, beats the guards, and breaks Arthur out. Then the two escape outside to see a metric fuck ton of military. So Arthur and Mera, mainly Mera, fight their way through. In the White House Situation Room, Gantry orders Aquaman and Mera to be stopped and contained. When a subordinate asks about the lethal force of a member of the Justice League, Gantry tells her that Aquaman isn't important or beloved, and no one will care. Then Gantry gets a call from the president, and he advises the president to make the call. Then we cut to Antarctica. Black Manta is introduced to the leader of Nemo, the Fisher King, a jolly old man with a white beard. Manta's like, what the fuck? What is happening? Who the hell are you? And then the Fisher King lets Manta know that he has power and influence all over the world and far beyond Manta's imagination. Manta tells him that he's thinking too small. At Arthur's lighthouse, Joanna is looking around for Arthur, but she runs into Erica Watson, a cop and friend of Arthur who is watching the dog. Joanna gives Watson a letter to give to Aquaman and leaves. Mysterious. Anyway, Arthur and Mera are fighting the US military when Arthur tells her to stop. Mera looks over and is like, oh shit. The reason for this is because Superman appears and tells Arthur that they need to have a chat. Arthur and Supes argue, and Superman tells him that he can hear an Atlantean war fleet on the way. Gantry is getting pissed that Superman isn't attacking his friends and yells at him because he's a dick. Arthur begins to walk away, but Superman grabs him and tells him that he can't leave. So Arthur fucking clocks Superman in the face, and then Superman hits him back, but then Mera fucking just decks him. As Arthur and Mera are jumping Superman, Arthur basically tells him that he hates that people treat him as the reject of the Justice League. They fight some more, words are said, until finally the massive Atlantean warfleet arrives. Arthur orders them to stand down, and Superman tells him to fix this, or else. Back at Antarctica, Fisher King is laughing about Black Manta's ideas for Nemo, and how Black Manta thinks he'll have any say in anything. Black Manta lets Fisher King know that he doesn't serve anyone. Fisher King tells him to get used to it, and that the conversation's over. Then, Black Manta slashes Fisher King's throat with a big-ass knife. Black Manta then takes his place as the Fisher King. And, wait a minute, jolly old man, white beard, he has influence all over the world. The Fisher King dies and the person who killed him becomes the next Fisher King. Holy shit, this is Santa Claus. Black Manta killed Santa and now he is Santa. Anyway, the book ends with Arthur, Mera, and the fleet swimming back to Atlantis, planning on solving this mystery. The end.